Pompeii's water supply. In the early days when Pompeii was founded, the site was chosen primarily because of the water supply the river Sarno provided. Wells were sunk as much as 39 meters deep, but because it was so hard to drill through the volcanic rock layer, these were very few. Water would be drawn up with a system of lowering buckets on rope and using animals such as oxen to pull them back up again. This was in addition to the water collected by slaves from the river Sarno. By the 6th century BC, citizens had begun to build cisterns and houses to collect water through guttering and piping, which was often made of terracotta. By around the 3rd century BC, roofs were designed with compluviums in them, through which water fell into shallow pools, the impluviums. This water too would have been stored in a cistern underneath and drawn up when needed. Public buildings also owned such cisterns. At the end of the 1st century BC, in the time of Augustus, there was a sharp increase in agriculture and domestic crafts, which meant that more water was needed. Thus the aqueduct was invented. The aqueduct was a long line of pipes fed by the springs of Aquaro on the Mount Serino. The main aqueduct went to Naples, but a branch supplied Pompeii. The water flowed down the mountain to the highest point in Pompeii, the Castellum Aquae. The Castellum Aquae is around 6 meters in diameter, but was probably damaged in the earthquake of 62 AD. Pumice has been found in some of the pipes, suggesting they were, at the time of the eruption, open for repair. In an emergency, water was prioritised. It was sent first and foremost to the public baths, then to the public fountains, and finally to private villas of those rich enough to own their own water supply. Despite the careful choice of spring, there were always impurities. Therefore, the Castellum Aquae was fitted with many filters. Sediment was trapped and fell into a settling tank, which would have been cleaned out by public slaves owned by the government, and clean water divided into 3 tunnels. Water ran through the lead pipe, or fistulae, which was buried around 60 centimeters below the pavement. The lead was not dangerous because it formed a layer of calcium carbonate, preventing it from becoming toxic. Lead had many advantages, as it was cheap, readily available, and easy to handle. It had a high melting point, so lead was melted and made into flexible sheets, which were rolled up to form a pipe. The seam of these pipes faced upwards to aid repair. Water going to the public would end up in water towers. These were huge brick towers with lead storage tanks on the top. They functioned as regulators of the pressure and as water reserves. They also allowed a continual flow of water around all areas of the city. Public fountains were placed evenly around the city. There are around 3 water fountains supplied by each water tower. These often overflowed, and it's likely the water would have been used to clean the streets. There were drainage holes and plugs at the bottom of the fountains, so that water could be removed and the basin cleaned. While the less wealthy citizens collected water from these, the rich citizens could have had their own water supply. They would have had a water pipe leading to a storage tank on the house roofs. Often these tanks had multiple pipes leading off into different villas, so citizens could share the cost. Water pipes in private houses were generally hidden by floorboards and walls, but occasionally they were made out of precious metals to show off wealth. There were no actual sewers in Pompeii except for around the Forum, which was the lowest point in the town. Many houses would merely own a septic tank underneath the house. These would have been emptied so often and decomposed waste used as fertilizer. However, for water drainage there were gutters along most streets, taking water out through special holes in the city wall and gates, like this one. The pavements were designed to aid water drainage. Firstly, the pavements were very high, up to 60 centimeters, to allow waste and water to flow. Pedestrians had to cross the street using large stepping stones made of igneous rocks. The stepping stones were exactly 1.4 meters apart, which was the exact distance of cart axles, so carts could easily pass over them. These carts have left deep ruts in the paving stones made of Vesuvian lava. And lastly, the streets were slightly sloped to allow water to run into the gutters down either side.